Hey everyone, this video presentation is a course requirement of the graduate school in the subject General Geography for Teachers under Professor Deng Molina Taguyam of St. Paul University, Philippines. By the way, I'm your teacher, Condring Barceliano Conciso, and welcome to my channel. So this time, I will going to introduce to you the geography of Africa. So we know that Africa is the world's second largest continent in the world, and also known as the home to the largest desert in the world. So we know also that Africa is the continent that spans both the north and the southern hemisphere. So it was colonized for more than 300 years, and Africa also is a rich and diverse place. Africa has over 50 independent countries and accounts to about 16% of the world's population. That translates to over 1.2 billion people living in Africa. So did you know that Africa has more countries than any other continent? So I've said a while back, it comprises or it accounts to 50 countries in Africa. So Africa is the home to the largest desert in the world, the Sahara. It is the desert that is the size of the US, and it's the world's largest desert all over the world. Sahara, it's massive. Its total area expands over 3.1 million miles. It's the size of the entire country. It's almost the size of the USA. And some sand dunes in Sahara Desert are tall enough to bury a 50-story building. So, most of the world's golds and mines and diamonds rather come from Africa also. That's one of their import and export to the other countries. And more than 800 languages are spoken also in Africa. So Africa's landsform. So we talk about Africa's landsform. So Africa is located between the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. It has a long, smooth coast, so it does not have many harbors or ports. This makes it hard for Africans to use the seas for trading. So during the time of Magellan, so there is so-called barter during their times. But during the time of many Africans, when it comes to trading, there is the difficulty of exporting and importing goods and services, because there is no way for them to import and export their goods and services. It is because of there is no way for them to import these services and goods. So the Sahara also, which is Arabic for desert, stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea. So Red Sea also is one of the reason why many countries are exporting goods and services. It is because of this seawater. So Red Sea is a seawater inlet of the Indian Ocean lying between Africa and Arabia. So years can pass without rain. The Sahara divides Africa into two regions. This is the North Africa, that includes the Sahara and the region south of the Mediterranean, and the rest of Africa is the Sub-Saharan. It lies in the south of Africa. So did you know also that Africa has a huge plateau that covers most of Africa? This is a broad area of high and flat land. So this makes it higher in eastern and southern Africa than in other parts. A plateau is one of the four basic landforms and a narrow coastal plain that surrounds a plateau in Africa. This is the Waterberg Plateau in Namibia. So that not only a plateau that we can find in Africa, but there are also mountains, high mountains that we can find in Africa. The first one is the Atlas Mountain. So, did you know that Atlas Mountain are a mountain range in Maghreb? And Atlas Mountains also are in the northwest Africa. There are no mountain chains south of the Sahara, but there are some high mountains. This is the Mount Kilimanjaro, which is considered as the highest mountain in Africa, which is on the border on Kenya and Tanzania. So there is always snow on top because as we all know that if the higher the mountain is, the higher the temperature that we can experience. So Mount Kilimanjaro also is the highest mountain in Africa, as I've said a while back, and the highest single standing mountain in the world. It's about 5,895 meters above sea level and about 4,900 meters above its plateau base. So Mount Kilimanjaro also has 3 volcano cones. This is the Mount Kibo, the Kibo, Mawenzi, and Shira. Next is the Great Rift Valley. So it is an important landform in East Africa, and it is made of deep white cracks in the earth's surface. Many lakes are in this valley. This is a portion of the Great Rift Valley in Kenya. So we can find also some rivers in Africa. The first one is the Nile River. So Nile River is in East Africa, so we can find the Nile River in East Africa, and it is considered also as the longest river in the world. Not only that, the Niger River also, Congo, and Zambezi are other long African rivers that we can find in Africa. So the Congo River. The Congo River is formerly known as the Zaire River during the dictatorship of Mobutu Sese Seko in Africa. So Congo River is the second longest river, and it is shorter only than the Nile. So you can also find Niger River here in Africa. This is the principal river of West Africa, extended about 4,180 kilometers. Zambezi River also are one of the long African rivers that we can find in Africa. So Zambezi River is the 4th longest river in Africa. So the longest river is flowing river in Africa, and the largest flowing into the Indian Ocean from Africa. So that or the rivers. So these rivers have many waterfalls. So this is the reason why they have the difficulty in exporting goods and services. It is because of these waterfalls that make it difficult to travel on the rivers. So this has made it hard for Africans to travel and trade with each other. So water power from African rivers produces electricity, also called hydroelectricity, like some waterfalls. So hydroelectricity is electricity produced from water power. This is the Kariba Dam in Zimbabwe and Zambia. So water power, as I've said, is important to many Africans because this produces electricity source for them, or energy source for them to live. So when it comes to climate and vegetation also, it's almost all Africa lies in the tropics. True Africa has 5 climate regions, and each region has different vegetation or plants such as trees, shrubs, and grass. So they only experience the wet and dry season. So the region in Central Africa near the equator has a hot, wet, tropical climate. So as you can see in the legend, no, and the green one specify the short dry season, and the brown one or the yellow one specify the arid, and the other one is semi-arid, and the dark one, the brown one, is specify a drier summer, and the green one specifies no dry season. So in Africa, they only experience wet and dry season, in general. So in the tropical areas near the equator, there's heavy rain almost every day. Tropical rainforests grow in this climate. Logging, however, is destroying much the rainforests. So the second climate region is north and south of the rainforest. The climate is hot with both rainy and dry season. Savannas. It covers this region. Savannas are large land areas with long, thick grass and short trees, and many wild animals live in the savanna also. So there are some animals live in savannas, like for example, giraffe. The giraffe, which is the world's tallest animal and well known for its legs and neck. White rhinoceros also is the second mammals, or the second largest mammals in the world. Tiger, no, that live in savannas also. Hippopotamus also is the world's third largest land mammal. Wild beasts, yes, we can find wild beasts also in Africa. One of those mammals that we can find in Africa. North and south of the savannas, the climate is semi-arid. It means that the climate is hot with both rainy and dry seasons. There may be only 10 inches of rain during the year. The semi-arid zones of Africa are part of the Sahel also. The Sahel is a region of dry grassland south of the Sahara. So the word Sahel is Arabic for edge of desert or border. The Sahel stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea. 12 countries are in the Sahel. So what are these countries? The Senegal, Gambia, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Djibouti. So those are the 12 countries that we can find in Sahel. So the Sahel has long periods without rain called droughts. This photo shows, so as you can see in the photo, it shows people of the Sahel region that have to travel long distances in search of food and water. So it's because of droughts, they're experiencing the difficulty of uh, searching water and food. So culturally and historically, the Sahel is a shoreline between the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa. So the Sahel also has been heavily affected by the process of desertification. This means that the land is turning to desert. Desertification happens because of both physical and human factors. The term land degradation tends to be linked to the human factors, with desertification being linked to climate change. So the third climate region of Africa is a desert climate. The Sahara Desert is north of the short grassland. There are also smaller deserts at the southern end of Africa. So deserts have few plants, but these plants need almost water. So the fifth climate region has a Mediterranean climate. Summers are hot and dry, winters are short and rainy. So that's very difficult. If you go to Africa, so you need to pack foods and make some bottles to pour your water there, so that if summers come, you cannot suffer. So this climate is found in North Africa near the Mediterranean Sea. So we can find also grapes here, olives, oranges, and other crops grow in this climate, which is found also at the tip of Africa. So Africa's history and economy. So people have lived in Africa for thousands of years. It is sometimes called as the cradle of civilization. So it's almost 300 years when Africa is being civilized, or colonized, I should say. So they are so called as the cradle of civilization. It is because of the cultures and traditions of Africa. So African culture is expressed in its arts and crafts, folklores and religion, clothing, music, and languages. And that's one of their culture, their traditions. It's what the so-called tribes. So I can share something about the culture and tradition of some African. So among the most famous Maasai traditions are the jumping dance, the wearing of colorful shuka, their dress, spitting and drinking of blood. That's one of their culture. So the Adamu, so it is the jumping dance. Adamu is the jumping dance which is performed as part of the initiation rite when young adults become men. Accompanied by song, pairs of men take turns to see who can jump the highest. So the ritual is performed to show prowess and fitness, and it forms a part of the celebration when the boys become eligible bachelors. He who jumps the highest attracts the best bride. So the vibrant colored cloth, as you can see in the picture, their clothes speaks to their culture. The vibrant color cloth worn by the Maasi is known as shuka. Red is considered to be the sacred color that represents their blood. So the red color of their uh, cloth symbolizes or considered or it represents their blood. Their earrings, it represents their culture. No, as you can see at the tongue of this man, the picture, that's considered as their tradition. Uh, okay, the next one. So hundreds of ethnic groups live together in close groups called tribes. Each ethnic group has its own language, religion, and culture, which can sometimes cause conflicts. So the most distinctive characteristic of the so-called Himba in Africa is their unique adornment. The distinctive red ochre ochre body paint and elaborate hairstyle have become one of the signifies their status, age, and social standing of Africa. So this map shows where the different tribes in Africa live. So as you can see, okay, so as you can see in the picture how is being how is their culture become introduced to the other countries. Like for example, their hairstyle, their what's it called, the clothing, that represent their blood. Like for example, the Unkululu, who is the creation of all life, one of their ancestors that is being praised by them, while Unkululu is remote and detached. All fortune, misfortune, good or bad luck is attributed the ancestral spirits or the spirits of the dead. As you can see in the picture, they praise their ancestors in behalf of their in the living, their status, their social standing. So specifically of people with respected and successful in life. They are also renowned for their skilled craftsmanship, from pottery or weaving and breadwork. So as you can see also in the picture, African tribes lose control of their country. Disease and starvation become widespread. Had wars, protests broke out, and tribes fought other tribes. The way the Europeans drew the borders caused conflicts between tribes who didn't like each other, but they were in the same colony. So as you can see also, the colonialism in Africa from the 1800s to 1960s, European countries ruled most of Africa. So we're going to back here in this picture. So this crumble for Africa, the artificial drawing of this African political boundaries among European powers in the end of the 19th century. It leads to partitioning of the several ethnicities across newly created African states. This picture shows that the partitioned ethnic groups have suffered significantly longer and more devastating civil wars It also uncovers substantial spillovers as ethnic conflict spreads from the historical homeland of groups partitioned to nearby homeland of groups or areas where non-split ethnicities resides. In conclusion, the European countries wanted to own Africans' gold, diamonds, copper, and other resources. So that's one of their way to import and export their goods and services. So they need to persevere in mining copper, golds, diamonds, etc. In order for them to gain more income, to sustain all their needs, especially their families. So Europeans divided most of Africa into colonies. Often different ethnic groups were forced to live together in one country, causing conflicts. And for example, as you can see in the map, at the left side, Liberia, and at the right side, the Ethiopia, are the only countries that were never colonies. So many of these ethnic groups were enemies and could not get along. Today, fighting among ethnic groups is still a problem. So, as they say, we are fighting every day because we are Hutu and they are Tutsis. We cannot mix. We are always in conflict. The tribesman said, we will stay enemies forever. So, who are the Hutu and Tutsis? So these two have lived intermingled for centuries on the same land in the most densely populated part of sub-Saharan Africa, in the south of Africa. So before the coming of the Europeans, the minority Tutsis were mostly, but not all, aristocratic herders of cattle. And the majority, the Hutu or Hutus, were mostly, but not all, tillers of the soil. So many African languages are tone languages, meaning that pitch level that determines their one of their way to avoid conflict in between Tutsis and Hutu. So the Europeans needed modern transportation. So they built roads, railroads, and seaports throughout Africa. They used these ports to ship minerals and raw materials to Europe. So what are some raw materials or products that we can find in Africa? So from nature, such as cotton, metal, and wood, the Europeans used them to make factory goods that they would sell to their African colonies. Europeans also started plantations. A plantation, that is a large farm that grows cash crops. Plantation in colonial times grew cash crops such as coffee, sugarcane, and cotton. So those are the crops that most African need to harvest for them to gain more income, for them to in order for them to have a good income in their families, in order for them also to sustain the needs of their family. So during the 1960s, Africans began ruling themselves. They were no longer colonies or lands ruled by distant countries. Now all African countries are independent. Life today. Today, most Africans earn a living by farming. They use traditional methods like using animals to pull plows instead of modern farm machinery like tractors. So nowadays they use tractors in order for to have a faster, production. So most Africans also are subsistence farmers, which means they struggle just to grow enough food for their families. Africans also work in mines and export its mineral to many nations. So each African nation earns most of its money by exporting only one or two farm or mineral products. Today, most countries in Africa are still developing nation. That this means, except for the country of South Africa, the nation in Africa have the lowest standard of living and poor industry or technology. So, today Africans are still working to improve their countries. Like for example, technologies. So they need to upgrade their technologies in order for them to develop, in order for them to have a faster production when it comes to goods and services, when it comes in exporting and importing goods and services to the other countries in order for their country becoming or become developed. So to end my report, let's watch this video. Wait a minute. So wait a minute. So let's.
This is Earth. Maybe you've heard of it. I sure hope so, because you live on one of its 7 continents. Guess which continent is the hottest? That's right, you guessed it, Africa. Africa is home to the largest desert in the world, the Sahara. It's massive. Its total area spans over 3 million square miles. It's the size of an entire country. Seriously, it's almost the size of the United States. But Africa isn't all sand and dunes, not by a long shot. A little ways south of the Sahara is the Congo rainforest. It's the 2nd largest rainforest in the world, and it's full of life. Mammals, birds, amphibians, and close to 10,000 species of plants. Let's take a quick trip to the African savanna to check out all the wildlife. This tropical grassland covers almost 65% of Africa. And where there's grass, there are herbivores, also known as plant eaters. Zebras, elephants, giraffes, and gazelles all graze off the land in large herds for safety, because these herbivores live alongside predators. The big cats aren't the only carnivores in town. Crocodiles roam near the banks of the shore. Hyenas and wild dogs also roam this continent in search of their next meal. Millions of people come to visit the savanna every year to see these amazing animals in their natural habitat, rain or shine. Because the savanna has only 2 seasons, wet and dry. It's not just wildlife that lives here. There's another animal who shares this beautiful continent. Humans. It's hard to believe that one of the oldest civilizations on Earth began in Africa, in ancient Egypt to be exact, dating back over 5,000 years. Today, there are over 1 billion people living on the continent of Africa, in 56 different countries, speaking over 1,500 languages, living in large cities and small villages. All are residents of the 2nd largest continent on Earth, Africa.
Happy learning, everyone. Please subscribe and share my channel. Thank you. and God bless.